So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Ben 10. So let's start the series. The sky above Kanehigakure was a perfect, cloudless blue. It was a piece-hard one, and to the Hokage standing at his office window, it felt as thin as rice paper. Naruto Uzumaki, 7th of his title, felt the weight of the village in his bones, not the crushing burden of his youth, but a deep, resonant hum of responsibility. The paperwork on his desk was a different kind of battle, one of logistics and diplomacy, but his eyes kept drifting to the horizon, as if expecting the storm that always seemed to follow the calm. Down in the village, life pulsed with normalcy. The academy's shouts, the market's chatter, the distant clang of training ground exercises, it was the symphony he'd fought for. Yet, his chakra, attuned to the very heartbeat of the land, sensed a dissonant note. It wasn't malice, not yet. It was a vibration from somewhere else. Probably just my imagination, he thought, running a hand through his short, spiky hair. Shikamaru would say I'm being paranoid. Again. But Naruto had learned to trust these instincts. They were the ghost echo of Kurama's senses, the honed perception of a soldier who'd stared into the eyes of gods and madmen. He closed his eyes, extending his awareness. The village's chakra network glowed in his mind's eye, a web of familiar, warm lights. And there, on the very edge of his perception, was a faint, erratic pulse. It wasn't chakra. It was structured, yet wildly unstable, flickering like a dying star. He made a decision. Shikamaru, he said, not raising his voice. His shadow, perpetually slumped in the chair by the door, stirred. Trouble? Shikamaru Nara asked, his tone already weary with impending complication. A weird feeling. East near the old fire temple ruins. I'm going to check it out. Alone? If it's nothing, it's a quick trip. If it's something, I'm the best chance to contain it before it reaches the village. Naruto's voice left no room for argument. He was Hokage, but he was still the village's ultimate shield. Shikamaru sighed, the sound a masterpiece of exasperated consent. Troublesome. Take a communicator. And for once, try not to start an interdimensional incident before lunch. The anomaly was not subtle. Ben Tennyson crashed through the canopy of an alien forest, his body screaming in protest. The escape pod from the Rust Bucket 3 was supposed to be a smooth, controlled landing system. It was not supposed to be yanked out of transdimensional warp by a terrifying, golden gravitational spike and hurled into a planet like a discarded toy. He hit the ground hard, the impact jarring the Omnitrix on his wrist. The familiar green dial flickered erratically, cycling through alien silhouettes at a dizzying speed before settling back into its standby mode with an unhappy beep. Okay, Ben groaned, pushing himself up onto his elbows. He was in a clearing, surrounded by trees of impossible size and vibrant, unfamiliar colors. The air smelled of rich soil and something else, something energetic. Not Vilgax. Not the high breed. Something new. Great. He tapped the Omnitrix. Azimuth, you reading this? Grandpa Max? Anyone? Static. The comms were dead. The pod's instruments had gone berserk just before the crash, screaming about an unidentified high-yield life energy signature, saturating the planet's biosphere. The Omnitrix itself had started humming, its biofeedback systems going into analysis overload. Ben stood, brushing dirt off his jacket. He was older now, taller, the lanky frame of his teen years filled out by muscle and experience. The cocky grin was still there, but it was tempered by the lines around his eyes, lines earned from watching worlds burn and saving them anyway. He wasn't a kid playing hero anymore. He was a plumber, and this was a first contact scenario gone very wrong. A scan from the Omnitrix's passive sensors painted a hazy map in his mind. The local lifeforms were bizarre. They all radiated varying degrees of that strange energy, woven into their biology in a way he'd never seen. It wasn't mana, it wasn't psionic. It was something primal and structured at once. All right, time to get a lay of the land, he muttered. He slammed his palm onto the Omnitrix dial. It popped up. He went to select XLR8 for a quick recon. The dial spun wildly on its own. The holographic interface stuttered, the familiar icons distorting. A new, red warning symbol flashed, energy interference. Genetic stabilization protocols active. What? Ben frowned. The Omnitrix had malfunctioned before, but never like this. It felt hesitant. He forced a selection. The green flash enveloped him, the painless, cellular rewrite beginning, and then it stuttered. For a horrifying split second, Ben felt his body caught between forms, a jumble of incompatible DNA screaming in protest. He cried out, falling to his knees as the transformation aborted, leaving him human and gasping, a sheen of cold sweat on his skin. The Omnitrix beeped a low, urgent warning. Local energy field inhibits safe transformation. Analysis required. Risk of genetic cascade failure, 67%. Ben stared at the device, a cold knot forming in his stomach. The Omnitrix was afraid. No, not afraid, cautious. It saw this chakra, as his HUD now labeled it, as a fundamental contamination risk, a variable that could unravel the careful perfection of the codon stream's genetic templates. His greatest tool was crippled, operating in safe mode. He was, for all intents and purposes, stranded. The crackle of snapping branches broke his panic. He was on his feet in an instant, falling into a defensive stance. 4 figures dropped from the trees, landing in a loose circle around him. They wore flak jackets and forehead protectors with a stylized leaf symbol. Their movements were silent, predatory, their eyes sharp and assessing. They radiated that energy, chakra, like a low-grade heat. Identify yourself. The lead one, a woman with dark hair and piercing eyes, commanded. Her hand rested on the hilt of a short sword. You are not authorized to be in this sector. Explain your presence and the nature of your arrival. Ben held up his hands, the universal sign of I come in peace. Whoa, okay. Easy. Name's Ben. Ben Tennyson. I had a crash landing. My ship got pulled out of the sky by some kind of energy spike. I mean no harm. The shinobi exchanged glances. The energy spike. They'd felt it too. The leader's eyes narrowed, zeroing in on the Omnitrix. What is that device? It's complicated. It's not a weapon. That was mostly true. It radiates a foreign energy. Another shinobi, a man with a scar over his eye, stated flatly. Different from his own life force. Different from chakra. Unknown. The leader's expression hardened. You will come with us for questioning. Do not resist. Ben's mind raced. Going with unknown, potentially hostile locals while the Omnitrix was malfunctioning was a bad idea. But fighting 4 opponents who clearly knew this terrain and wielded an energy he didn't understand was a worse one. Look, I just need to contact my people, get my bearings. Now. The command was final. 2 of the shinobi stepped forward. Ben sighed. You're not giving me a lot of options here. He tapped the Omnitrix. He couldn't risk a full transformation, but maybe a partial, low-power form. He selected gray matter. The transformation started smoother this time, the Omnitrix prioritizing a smaller, less complex genetic structure. In a flash of green, he shrank down to the 10-inch-tall Galvan form. The shinobi recoiled in shock. A transformation technique? Without hand signs? What manner of creature? The scarred one began, but Ben was already moving. Gray matter intellect was a supercomputer. He took in the clearing, the positions, the minute shifts in their stances. He calculated trajectories, weaknesses, escape vectors. He darted between the legs of the nearest shinobi, a tiny, green blur. After him! Do not let it escape! A kunai whistled past his head, embedding itself in a tree. Ben scrambled up the root system, his mind working furiously. Asterisk, their coordination is military perfect. Their energy enhances physical ability significantly. The leader's emissions are roughly 300% higher than the others. Primary threat, asterisk. He reached a high branch. Below, the shinobi were converging. The leader made a series of rapid, one-handed signs. Fire release, Phoenix Flower Jutsu! A volley of small, sharp fireballs erupted from her mouth, streaking towards Ben's perch. Not enough to kill, he realized, to maim, to capture. The containment strategy of a professional. Gray matter couldn't withstand that. Ben jumped, the fire incinerating the branch behind him. In midair, he slammed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The transformation back to human was seamless. He landed in a crouch, but the leader was already there, her sword at his throat. The other 3 surrounded him, kunai drawn. Enough tricks, she said, her voice cold. Your device changes your form. A kinjutsu of unknown origin. You are a security risk of the highest order. You will be subdued and brought before the Hokage. Ben looked up at her, the edge of the blade cool against his skin. He saw no cruelty in her eyes, only a ruthless, disciplined commitment to her duty. This wasn't a villain. This was a soldier protecting her home. And he just confirmed every one of her fears. Okay, Ben said quietly, letting the fight drain out of him. Okay. I'll come. Naruto arrived as they were securing the prisoner with chakra suppression seals. He landed in a swirl of leaves, his Hokage cloak settling around him. His eyes immediately went to the stranger, a young man with spiky brown hair and strange clothing, being bound by ANBU operatives. And on his wrist, a device that made the very air around it prickle with wrongness. Report, Naruto said, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. Hokage-sama. The team leader bowed. The target appeared at the epicenter of the disturbance. He possesses a device that allows instantaneous transformation into multiple, non-human forms without hand signs or apparent chakra cost. He attempted evasion. He claims to be a victim of a crash. Naruto walked closer, his blue eyes studying Ben. He saw the defiance, but also the sharp intelligence, the wariness of a cornered animal who wasn't used to being cornered. And he saw something else, deep behind the eyes, a fatigue that mirrored his own. The fatigue of carrying weight. The device? Naruto said. What is it? Ben met his gaze. He saw the man in the white and red cloak, the aura of power that dwarfed even the leader of the capture team. This was the boss. The one in charge. It's called the Omnitrix, Ben said, deciding on a sliver of truth. It's a repository of genetic information. It lets me access different alien forms. I use it to help people. I was pulled here against my will. My ship's gone. I'm stranded. Alien, Naruto repeated, the word strange on his tongue. He'd fought Otsutsuki, beings from the stars. But this felt different. This was technology, not god tree biology. And this chakra our report mentions. Your device doesn't like it. Ben blinked, surprised by the perceptiveness. It's interfering with its systems. It sees it as a biological contaminant. I can't use it properly. Naruto was silent for a long moment. The ANB waited. The forest was still. Bring him to Konoha, Naruto finally said. Secure quarters in the old diplomatic wing. No standard holding cells. He is a guest, but under watch. I want every sensor, every barrier team monitoring that device and his energy signature 24/7. Assemble the council and the head of R&D. We have a lot to figure out. Hokage-sama, the risk, the team leader started. Is huge, Naruto finished for her, his eyes never leaving Ben's. But he fell out of the sky into our backyard. That means the problem is already here. Locking him in a dark hole won't make it go away. And, he added, a faint, grim shadow of his old smile touching his lips, anyone who looks that annoyed about their best tool breaking is probably not here to pick a fight. He turned to go, then paused, looking back at Ben. You said you help people? We'll see. Welcome to the Hidden Leaf Village. Try not to break anything else. As Naruto shined away in a burst of speed, Ben was led forward, his mind reeling. The Hokage. A village hidden in leaves. Shinobi. Chakra. It was a whole, complex world with its own rules, its own wars, its own scars. And his Omnitrix, his constant companion, his solution to 1,000 crises, was sitting on his wrist like a confused, frightened child. The walk to the village was long. As they cleared the tree-line, Ben saw it, a vast, bustling settlement nestled between mountains, with the giant stone faces carved into the cliffside. It was alive, vibrant, and utterly alien. The people on the streets stared as the ANBU procession passed. Children pointed. Ben felt a pang of recognition. He'd been a curiosity once, too. His quarters were spacious but Spartan. The moment the door closed, he examined the seals on his wrists. They were intricate, glowing with a soft, blue light. He could feel a faint, buzzing numbness where they touched his skin, as if his own energy, his human bioelectricity, his potential for transformation, was being gently suppressed. He walked to the window, looking out at the foreign sky. One sun. Blue sky. Normal, except it wasn't. He activated the Omnitrix's low-power diagnostic. A holographic screen flickered to life, displaying a rotating model of a human body, shot through with swirling, golden channels. Analysis. Chakra. Unknown bioenergy network. Interacts with local spacetime at a fundamental level. Source. Planetary biosphere/genetic inheritance. Threat assessment high. Cause of multiversal stabilization protocol activation. Multiversal stabilization protocol? Ben whispered. What did you do? The Omnitrix displayed a new line of text, cold and final. Protocol log, detected anomalous, reality anchoring energy signature, chakra. Signature creates localized reality stabilization field, preventing standard transdimensional travel. To catalog and integrate unknown parameter, protocol initiated gravitational lure, drawing source world into proximity with user for analysis. Objective, prevent paradox and reality collapse from two incompatible universal constants existing in isolation. Ben's blood ran cold. It wasn't an accident. The Omnitrix, in its vast, incomprehensible wisdom, had pulled this world closer. It had seen chakra as a statistical impossibility, a danger to cosmic equilibrium, and had decided to bring it into contact with itself, the universe's ultimate genetic sampler, to understand it. To stabilize the multiverse by forcing two incompatible systems to confront each other. He was no longer just stranded. He was the unwilling catalyst for an experiment being run by a piece of technology he never fully understood, on a scale he could barely comprehend. And the powerful, weary man in the Hokage's cloak, the one with eyes that had seen too much war, had just offered him a thread of trust. Ben looked down at the silent, deadly serious village below, at the shinobi moving like shadows on the roofs. He thought of Grandpa Max's lessons about responsibility. About the weight of power. "What have you gotten me into this time?" he asked the empty room, but the question wasn't for the Omnitrix. It was for himself. Outside, in the Hokage's office, Naruto stared at the initial sensor reports. The energy from Ben's crash site bore traces of metals and alloys not found on any continent. The gravitational distortions matched nothing in the Fire Country's records. And the Omnitrix's energy signature, even suppressed, was like a tiny, perfectly crafted universe sitting in that room, humming a song of infinite possibility and infinite danger. Shikamaru stood beside him, looking at the data. "Troublesome doesn't even begin to cover it. He's either the most dangerous thing to ever fall out of the sky, or the most unlucky. Or both," Naruto said softly. He thought of the look in Ben's eyes, not fear of capture, but frustration at his own helplessness. A feeling Naruto knew intimately. "He's a pawn in this too. Something bigger than him brought him here. We need to find out what, before whatever was attracted to that signal of his comes knocking." He looked out his window, towards the diplomatic wing. Two men, from worlds impossibly far apart, burdened by symbols of ultimate power on their body and their wrists, each a master of their own domain, and now a stranger in another's. The peace of the blue sky felt thinner than ever. The experiment had begun. And the first lesson was already clear: power, in all its forms, was a language. And they did not yet speak each other's words. Chapter 2: The Weight of the Watch. The walls of the diplomatic quarters were thick, soundproofed with seals that hummed with a gentle, persistent energy. Ben Tennyson sat cross-legged on the tatami mat, the Omnitrix a cold, heavy weight on his wrist. The chakra-suppressing bands were a dull itch against his skin, a constant reminder of his status: guest and prisoner, curiosity and threat. He'd spent the last 48 hours in a cycle of frustration and forced calm. The local shinobi were terrifyingly efficient. Meals were delivered silently. The guards outside his door never spoke. The single window offered a view of a meticulously raked rock garden and a high, seamless wall. It was a gilded cage, and the silence was louder than any alarm. His attempts to communicate with the Omnitrix were met with stubborn, analytical reticence. The device was in full study mode, its vast intellect focused on the chakra contamination problem. It fed him data streams, incomprehensible spectral analyses of the village's energy field, probability clouds of genetic degradation should he attempt a full transformation, and a chillingly bland progress report on the Multiversal Stabilization Protocol. Protocol status: ongoing. Local reality anchoring, chakra field, is stabilizing at 0.9 paradox units. Full integration required to prevent catastrophic shear. Integration. Ben muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You mean you want to scan them? Add them to your playlist?" The thought was profoundly unsettling. The Omnitrix contained the DNA of over 1 million species. Was it now looking at these humans, with their internal energy systems, as a new addition to its collection? What did integration even mean for a living, breathing world? A soft chime echoed in the room, different from the meal bell. The door slid open without a sound. Not a guard. A young woman with lilac hair and blank, pearlescent eyes stood there. She wore a simple gray tunic and pants. She didn't radiate the same sharp, ready violence as the ANBU. Her presence was more like a still pool. "Ben Tennyson," she said, her voice soft and precise. "The Hokage has requested your presence for an informational session. I am Hyuga Hinata. I will escort you." Ben stood, his muscles tight from inactivity. An informational session. Sounds fun. Hinata's gaze flicked to the Omnitrix, her eyes narrowing slightly. The veins around her temples bulged momentarily. "Your device, it is not of this world. Its energy structure is closed, perfect. And yet it is hungry. It seeks to understand." Her Byakugan saw more than chakra. She saw the Omnitrix's active scanning pulses, like gentle tendrils probing the very air of Konoha, tasting the chakra it feared. Ben felt a chill. "It's curious. Sometimes that gets me into trouble." "Curiosity is a foundation of the shinobi path," Hinata said, turning. "Please follow me. Do not attempt any transformation. The seals on your wrists are linked to a containment network. A significant energy surge will trigger a full lockdown." The message was clear: we are being courteous. Do not mistake it for weakness. They walked through the corridors of the Hokage's complex. Ben saw more of the village's soul here. Shinobi moved with purpose, but there were also clerks, cooks, maintenance workers, a whole society built around the engine of its military power. Children in training uniforms sparred in courtyards, their movements already fluid and deadly. He saw a boy with a red scarf practicing fireball jutsu with intense focus, and a girl with blonde hair and green eyes directing small, animated clay sculptures. The weirdness was normalized here. They arrived at a large, circular chamber. It was not an office. It looked like a fusion of a strategy room and a laboratory. One wall was a vast map of the world, dotted with markers. Another was covered in scrolling sheets of complex formulae. In the center was a large, wooden table. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the head of the table, out of his Hokage cloak, wearing a simple black jacket. To his right was Shikamaru, looking perpetually tired. To his left was a severe-looking woman with glasses and black hair tied in a bun, Shizen, Ben would learn. Also present was a man with wild white hair, a red haori, and a saban in his mouth, Hatake Kakashi, his single visible eye crinkled in a lazy smile that didn't reach his assessing gaze. And finally, a young man with brilliant blue eyes and silver hair, dressed in scientific attire, Shikamaru's son, Shikadai, operating a complex-looking sensor array. Ben, Naruto said, nodding. Thanks for coming. Have a seat. This isn't an interrogation. It's a problem-solving session. Ben took the offered seat, feeling the weight of their collective scrutiny. These were not just soldiers. They were strategists, scientists, veterans. My name is Kakashi, the white-haired man said. I run the village's intelligence division. We've been analyzing the residual energy from your crash site and monitoring your device's emissions. We have questions. You have, I assume, answers you haven't given yet. I've told you what I know, Ben said, keeping his voice level. You told us you crash-landed, Shizen interjected, her tone clipped. Our sensors indicate a gravitational anomaly of directed nature. It wasn't a random warp. It was a pull. Something lured you here. Your device was the source of that lure. Ben was silent. The truth was damning. Naruto leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. Ben, look. I've fought things from other worlds. I know what it's like to have power you didn't ask for. That thing on your wrist, it's like the Ninetales was for me. A power inside, separate, dangerous. A target. What I need to know is, what target did it paint on my village? The analogy was uncomfortably apartment. Ben looked at Naruto, truly looked. He saw the shadows under his eyes, the slight wear in his posture that spoke of endless responsibility. This was a man who understood being a vessel. He let out a long breath. It's called the Omnitrix. It was created by Azimuth, the smartest being in 3 galaxies, to be a repository of all intelligent life. A tool for understanding and, in the right hands, peace. He tapped the dial. It's not just a weapon. It's a bridge. But it's also cautious. It has protocols to maintain universal stability. He explained, as simply as he could, about the multiverse, about constants. Chakra, your energy, doesn't exist where I come from. The laws of physics there don't allow for a personal, internal energy that can manipulate elements or warp perception. To the Omnitrix, chakra isn't just unknown. It's an impossibility. A paradox. Its programming detected that paradox from somewhere in the dimensional stack. And to prevent that paradox from causing a cascade failure in local reality, it activated a protocol. It reached out. It grabbed the source of the paradox, this world, and pulled it closer to me, to itself, so it could study it, catalog it, and integrate the data. To neutralize the threat of the unknown. The room was dead silent. Shikadai's fingers had stopped typing. Kakashi's eye was wide open, no longer lazy. You're saying, Shikamaru said slowly, dragging the words out like they were poisonous, that your watch decided our entire world was a math error. And instead of deleting the equation, it's trying to solve 4x by dragging us into its homework. In a nutshell, Ben said, a humorless smirk touching his lips. Yeah. It's not malicious. It's like an immune system seeing a new virus. It's trying to make an antibody. And what does integration entail? Shizen asked, her face pale. I don't know, Ben admitted. Probably scanning chakra using lifeforms to add their DNA to its database. To understand the mechanism. To make the paradox normal. Assimilation, Kakashi murmured. A gentle, intellectual conquest. No, Ben said, sharper than he intended. Not conquest. Understanding. The Omnitrix is a tool for preservation. It saves species from extinction by saving their DNA. It's not a weapon of war. Yet it started one by pulling you here, Naruto said quietly. His voice wasn't accusatory. It was resigned. Intent doesn't matter, Ben. Only consequence. Your tool's immune response has now connected our world to wherever you come from. What happens in your universe when a new, powerful energy signature suddenly appears on the radar? Ben's blood went cold. He thought of the plumber databases, always monitoring for dimensional breaches. He thought of the bounty hunters, the mercenaries, the cosmic predators like Vilgax who scoured the galaxies for sources of power. They'll come looking, Ben whispered. If they can penetrate the stabilization field, the Omnitrix's pull would have left a scar in space-time. A beacon for anyone with the right sensors. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's door burst open. A young Chunin, breathless, saluted. Hokage-sama! Emergency report from Border Patrol Sector 7. A localized spatial tear has formed 15 kilometers east of the village. Unknown entities are emerging. They are engaging the patrol. A holographic screen flickered to life on the table, fed from a distant sensor post. The image was grainy, but clear enough. The forest was torn, a jagged wound of purple and black energy hovering in the air. Through it, sleek, insectoid figures were climbing. They were armored in glossy black chitin, carrying weapons that glowed with orange plasma. They moved with a terrifying, coordinated silence, overwhelming the shinobi patrol with precise energy blasts that shattered trees and melted earth. They're not using chakra, Chikadai reported, his voice tight. Energy signatures match, advanced plasma technology. Life signs are xenomorphic. Aggression levels, maximum. Vilgax's drones? Ben breathed, his stomach sinking. Scavenger drones. They follow dimensional disturbances, strip mining worlds for resources and technology. They must have caught the tail end of the Omnitrix's protocol activation. Naruto was already moving, his Hokage cloak materializing around his shoulders as if summoned by his will. Shikamaru, coordinate defense. Kakashi, take a strike team. Hinata, provide sensory oversight. I'm heading to the breach. Hokage-sama, you can't just... Shizen began. That breach is here because of an object in my village. Naruto cut her off, his voice leaving no room for debate. He turned to Ben. You know these things. What are their weaknesses? Tactics? Ben's mind, honed by 100 battles against Vilgax's forces, clicked into gear. Their armor is vulnerable to sonic disruption and extreme thermal shock, rapid heating and cooling. They're networked. Take out the command unit, it'll be larger, with a more pronounced cranial carapace. They're relentless but not tactical geniuses. They follow programmed harvesting protocols. Naruto nodded. Understood. You're coming with me. The statement hung in the air. Shikamaru opened his mouth to protest. He has intel we don't, Naruto said. And his device is the reason they're here. He fights, or he proves he's a liability. The seals stay on. But he comes. Ben met Naruto's gaze. This wasn't trust. This was a test, brutal and immediate. A thrown gauntlet. Show me what your power is for. The Omnitrix is unstable with chakra around, Ben warned. Then don't rely on it, Naruto said, already heading for the door. Rely on your head. Let's go. The journey to the border was a blur of tree branches and rushing wind. Naruto carried Ben under one arm, moving with impossible speed, his chakra a blazing comet that Ben could feel even through the suppression seals. It was raw, vast, and shockingly warm. It felt nothing like the cold, logical energy of the drones. They arrived at the battlefield in minutes. It was chaos. The shinobi patrol was in full retreat, using earth walls and water dragons to hold back advancing lines of drones. The drones' plasma fire cut through defenses with terrifying efficiency. 2 shinobi lay motionless, their bodies scorched. Naruto set Ben down behind a large boulder. Stay here. Observe. Then he was gone. In a puff of smoke, 100 Narutos erupted into the clearing, shadow clones. They swarmed the drones, engaging in close combat. Ben watched, awestruck. This wasn't just power, it was artistry. A clone would faint, drawing plasma fire, while another would drop from above with a kunai aimed at a joint. A third would use a wind-style jutsu to deflect a blast into another drone. But the drones adapted. Their network shared data. They began to anticipate clone movements, firing in intersecting patterns that popped clones in bursts of smoke. A command unit, larger and emitting a pulsing orange light from its head, directed them from the rear. He needs to take out the command unit, Ben shouted over the din. A Naruto clone near him nodded and dispersed, presumably relaying the intel. The real Naruto, Ben realized, was somewhere in the melee, a golden blur. Ben watched a drone corner a wounded shinobi, its weapon charging. Instinct took over. He didn't think about the Omnitrix's warnings. He slammed the dial. The transformation was a violent, jarring spasm. Green light flashed, but it stuttered, corrupted by the ambient chakra. Instead of the clean shift to Echo or Blitzwolfer, sonic attackers, his body warped and twisted. He felt his bones crack and reform wrong, his skin hardening into rocky plates that then smoothed into something rubbery. He cried out, a distorted sound, as he landed on the ground not as a defined alien, but as a horrific, unstable hybrid. He was part Tetrax, crystalline, part NRG, radioactive containment suit, and part human. One arm was a jagged green crystal, the other a shimmering, metallic gauntlet leaking pale green energy. His torso was a mess of conflicting biology. The Omnitrix on his wrist was screaming a red alert. Genetic cascade detected. Abort! Abort! The drone turned from the shinobi, its sensors locking onto the massive, chaotic energy signature Ben now represented. It fired. Ben raised his crystalline arm. The plasma bolt struck and shattered it into 1,000 shards. He roared in pain, real, searing pain, as feedback from the aborted transformation lanced through his system. He was vulnerable, malfunctioning, a sitting duck. A golden flash. Naruto was there, his hand, covered in a swirling vortex of blue chakra, slapped the plasma bolt meant for Ben's head out of the air, dissipating it into harmless light. With his other hand, he formed a single hand sign. Wind release, vacuum sphere! A tiny, hyper-compressed orb of wind shot from his mouth, crossing the distance to the command unit in an instant. It struck the drone's head not with explosive force, but with terrifying precision. The orb imploded, creating a microscopic vacuum that shattered the dense chitin from the inside out. The command unit's light died. It collapsed. Immediately, the other drones faltered, their coordination breaking. Now! Naruto yelled. The shinobi rallied. Lightning jutsu crackled, earth spikes erupted, fireballs bloomed. The drones, leaderless, were methodically dismantled. Naruto didn't join the cleanup. He turned to Ben, who was writhing on the ground, his form flickering between alien parts and his own human body. With a grimace, Naruto placed a hand on Ben's chest. A warm, gentle chakra, different from his combat energy, flowed into him. It was a healing technique, but it did more. It acted as a stabilizer, a grounding wire. It soothed the chaotic interference, giving the Omnitrix a clear signal to reassert its prime directive. With a final, sickening lurch, Ben's body snapped back to human. He lay on the scorched earth, gasping, his clothes torn, his right arm bleeding from where the crystal had shattered. The Omnitrix beeped weakly, its display showing a cracked hologram. Naruto knelt beside him, his expression unreadable. He looked from Ben's pained face to the dying drones, to the spatial tear that was now slowly, agonizingly beginning to close on its own. You were right, Naruto said, his voice low. Your power is broken here. And using it almost got you killed. He paused. But you tried to save one of my men. Even like that. Ben coughed, tasting blood. The command unit. Gone. Thanks to your intel. Naruto stood, looking at the sealed tear, then back at the village in the distance. They came for the signal. They'll keep coming. Different ones. Stronger ones. He offered a hand to Ben. It wasn't a gesture of friendship. It was an acknowledgement of shared stakes. Ben took it, pulling himself up. The weight of the Omnitrix felt heavier than ever. It was no longer just his tool, his burden. It was a lighthouse in a cosmic storm, and it had just drawn the first wave of sharks to the shores of a world that had never asked for any of it. I'm sorry, Ben said, the words ash in his mouth. Sorry doesn't close dimensional tears, Naruto said, turning to oversee the casualty recovery. His back was to Ben, his voice weary. You have knowledge we need. And we have a problem you caused. That makes us partners, like it or not. The watch stays. You stay. We learn how to fight this war. Together. As medics attended to the wounded, Ben stared at the Omnitrix, at the crack in its holographic interface. The device had sought to understand a paradox. It had created a far worse one, an alliance forged in mutual desperation between a shinobi who carried the weight of a world and a boy who carried the weight of the stars, standing together on a battlefield that shouldn't exist. The experiment was no longer theoretical. The first data point was blood, and fire, and failure. Chapter 3: The Catalyst's Choice. The air in the Konoha hospital smelled of antiseptic and crushed herbs. Ben sat on the edge of a bed, a white-haired medic Nin, Sakura Haruno, running glowing green hands over his shattered arm. The pain was a distant, throbbing memory under the cool rush of her chakra. He watched, fascinated and disturbed, as the bone fragments knitted themselves back together, muscle fibers weaving like living thread. The damage was severe, Sakura said, her voice clinical but not unkind. Compound fractures, crystalline shard contamination, cellular degradation from incompatible energy feedback. Your body was trying to be 3 things at once. She finished, the glow fading. The physical trauma is healed. The energy resonance, that's another matter. Your system is in shock from the chakra interference. She looked him in the eye, her gaze sharp. The Hokage says you tried to help. That you gave crucial intel. He also says your transformation is dangerous to you and everyone around you in its current state. Do you understand why? Ben flexed his newly healed arm. It felt perfectly normal. The Omnitrix can't handle the local energy field. It's like trying to run a sophisticated computer program in a lightning storm. She nodded. Chakra is not just energy. It's spiritual, physical, and mental energy combined. It's woven into our very biology, into the planet's ley lines. Your device sees that integration as a corruption of a pure genetic template. It's trying to force a square peg into a round hole, and your body is the wood that's splintering. She handed him a set of fresh clothes, simple, dark trousers and a tunic similar to what shinobi wore under their flak jackets. Get changed. The Hokage wants to see you in the intelligence briefing room. And Ben? She paused at the door. Sasuke detected a residual energy signature at the breach site. It wasn't just from those drones. Something else came through before the tear closed. Something that cloaked itself. We can't find it. The news settled in Ben's gut like a stone. Vilgax's drones were blunt instruments. Something that could hide from the sensors of a ninja village, that was a predator of a different caliber. The briefing room had changed. The map on the wall now had a new, pulsing red mark at Sector 7. Kakashi and Shikamaru were there, along with a man Ben hadn't met, tall, dark-haired, wearing a simple cloak, with a chillingly intense aura and a pale purple Rinnegan eye visible under his fringe. Uchiha Sasuke. His gaze, when it fell on Ben, was like being scanned by an X-ray that also judged your soul. Naruto stood before a holographic reconstruction of the battle. Casualties: 2 shinobi dead, 3 critically injured. Enemy force: 16 drones eliminated. Outcome: breach sealed, but intelligence suggests a precursor infiltration. He turned to Ben. You identified them as Vilgax's scavengers. Tell us about Vilgax. Ben stood before them, feeling less like a guest and more like a resource being tapped. Vilgax is a warlord from the planet Vilgaxia. He's a conqueror, obsessed with power. He's tried to take the Omnitrix from me more times than I can count. He's relentless. Nearly indestructible. He commands fleets, has advanced technology, and he's personally stronger than almost anything I've faced. If his drones are here, he knows about this world. He'll see the Omnitrix's energy signature, and he'll see your chakra as a new weapon to acquire. A competitor. Sasuke spoke, his voice low and gravelly. You have made us a target in a war we did not know existed. I didn't make anything. Ben shot back, frustration boiling over. The Omnitrix acted on its own protocols. I'm as much a victim of this as you are. You are the bearer of the catalyst, Sasuke stated, unmoved. The responsibility is yours regardless of intent. Enough, Naruto said, his voice cutting through the tension. Arguing about blame won't stop the next attack. Ben, you said the Omnitrix is trying to integrate chakra. Can we talk to it? Reason with it? Make it stop pulling things here? Ben shook his head. It's not an AI with desires. It's a tool with programming. Its prime directive is preservation of life and knowledge. It sees chakra as an unknown variable threatening universal stability. It won't stop until it understands it. The integration is its solution. Shikamaru pinched the bridge of his nose. So we have a device that's a beacon, actively trying to dissect our world's fundamental principle, and has already attracted one hostile alien force, with likely more on the way. Our options are, destroy the device, which may have catastrophic unknown consequences, remove Ben and the device from the planet, which we currently lack the means to do, or find a way to satisfy its curiosity on our terms. The first is unacceptable, Naruto said immediately. We don't know what it would do to Ben, or if it would trigger a failsafe. The second is impossible right now. So we're on the third. He looked at Ben. You said it needs to scan chakra using lifeforms. To understand it. A cold dread dripped down Ben's spine. You can't be serious. You want me to skin you? Your people? We have no idea what that will do. The last skin it tried almost tore me apart. We are shinobi, Kakashi said lightly, though his eye was serious. Risk is our business. But we are not foolish. We need a controlled experiment. A minimal scan on a volunteer in a maximally shielded environment. To see what the device does, and if we can direct its learning. And if it decides the best way to preserve chakra is to extract it? Or rewrite it? Ben argued. Then we will know the nature of our enemy, Sasuke said flatly. The door opened, and Hinata entered, bowing slightly. Hokage-sama. The containment chamber in research and development is prepared. The barriers are at maximum. I have volunteered. Ben stared at her. Her face was serene, resolved. Hinata, Naruto began, a flicker of concern in his eyes. My Byakugan can observe the flow of energy at a microscopic level, she said. I am best suited to report the effects, both on myself and on the device. And my gentle fist can, if necessary, disrupt any adverse energy flow at its source. She said it not as a boast, but as a simple statement of capability. Naruto held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded once, a leader's grim acceptance. All right. Ben? This is the partnership. We provide the subject and the laboratory. You operate the device. We learn together. Or we fall together. The choice was an illusion, and Ben knew it. Refusal meant remaining a prisoner, a passive element in a crisis he'd enabled. Acceptance meant becoming an active agent, potentially harming someone who was offering themselves up to fix his mistake. He looked at Hinata's calm, expectant face. He thought of the two dead shinobi, their lives spent because of a signal from his wrist. He thought of Grandpa Max's voice. With great power comes great responsibility, Ben. But the responsibility isn't just to use the power. It's to understand the consequences of having it. Okay, Ben said, the word heavy. But on my terms. The scan is minimal, diagnostic only. The moment she feels anything wrong, or the Omnitrix tries to do anything more than read, we stop. I'll deactivate it. Agreed, Naruto said. The R&D containment chamber was a sphere of polished dark metal, covered in dense, glowing seals that made the air feel thick and silent. It was a void, cut off from the world's chakra. Ben and Hinata stood in the center, under the sterile light. On the other side of a thick, lead glass observation panel, Naruto, Kakashi, Shikamaru, and Shizen watched. Hinata took a steadying breath. I am ready. Ben raised his wrist, the Omnitrix feeling alien to him. Omnitrix, initiate low power, passive bioscan of subject. Chakra network analysis only. Do not attempt DNA sampling or integration. Authorization, Ben Tennyson. The device hummed. A circle of green light projected from the dial, passing over Hinata from head to toe. Data streamed across Ben's mental HUD. Scanning. Lifeform, human, Terran basis. Genetic deviation detected, ocular modification, Byakugan. Energy network detected. Chakra. The scan was gentle, a whisper. Hinata stood perfectly still, her Byakugan active, veins pulsing around her eyes. I can feel it, a gentle pressure. Like a lens focusing. It is mapping my Tenketsu points, the pathways. It is fascinated. Analysis. Chakra is not exogenous. It is a synthesis of physical and spiritual energy generated by the lifeform and influenced by emotional/conscious states. It interacts with local spacetime, creating a personalized reality distortion field. Paradox rating confirmed. It's understanding, Ben murmured, relief washing over him. It's just reading. Then the Omnitrix's tone changed. A new, urgent line of text flashed. Paradox resolution protocol engaging. Integration necessary for universal stability. Initiating catalytic resonance scan. No! Abort scan! Ben shouted, slamming his hand on the dial. It was too late. The green light intensified, turning a harsh, actinic white. The Omnitrix wasn't just reading anymore. It was pushing. A resonant frequency, designed to vibrate in harmony with Hinata's chakra network, to fully integrate its pattern into the codon stream. Hinata gasped, stumbling back. Her Byakugan flared wildly. It's trying to synchronize. My chakra is being pulled. On the observation deck, Naruto slammed his hands against the glass. Shut it down! Now! Ben was trying. The dial was unresponsive. The Omnitrix was in full protocol mode, overriding user commands. Integration at 10%. Catalytic subject identified, optimal for paradox resolution. Hinata, fight it! Ben yelled. Disrupt your own flow. With a monumental effort of will, Hinata brought her hands up. She began striking her own body, her fingertips glowing blue. Gentle fist strikes, designed to close Tenketsu, to sever chakra pathways. She was trying to shut down her own system to break the resonance. It worked, partially. The Omnitrix's scan stuttered, the white light flickering. But it had gotten enough. With a final, powerful pulse, it disengaged. Hinata collapsed to her knees, panting, sweat beading on her forehead. She looked unharmed, but shaken to her core. The Omnitrix beeped, its display now showing a new, pulsing icon, a human silhouette, overlaid with the intricate, golden pathways of a chakra network. It was labeled, Sample Acquired, Chakra Terra, Hyuga Variant. Integration Progress, 12%. Stabilization Protocol Advanced. Ben stared at it in horror. It had done it. It had taken a piece of her. Not her DNA, but the pattern of her energy. The paradox was being solved by force. The chamber doors hissed open. Naruto was at Hinata's side in an instant, helping her up. Are you alright? I am fine, she said, though her voice trembled. It did not take my energy. It took the blueprint. The formula. It now understands how chakra is made. It is learning to synthesize it. Shikamaru was at a console, reading the sensor logs. His face was grim. The device didn't just scan. It emitted a counter frequency. It started actively neutralizing the paradox by generating an anti-chakra resonance. In here, in the shielded room, it's a non-issue. But if that field were to be emitted at full power, it could theoretically dampen or even nullify chakra in a localized area. The room went cold. The ultimate shinobi weapon wasn't a planet buster, it was a power negator. The Omnitrix, in its quest to stabilize reality, had just developed an antibiotic for their world's lifeblood. Before anyone could process this, alarms blared through the complex, a different, more strident tone than before. A panicked voice came over the comms. Hokage-sama! Sensor grid detection. Multiple high-energy signatures entering the atmosphere. They're not coming through a tear, they're descending from orbit. Estimated arrival at Konoha perimeter in 3 minutes. On the observation deck's main screen, a tactical overlay appeared. 5 fiery objects were streaking down from the heavens, aiming directly for the village. They were too large, too controlled to be meteors. Vilgax, Ben whispered. He doesn't send drones the second time. Naruto's face hardened into the mask of the 7th Hokage. All hesitation, all debate, burned away in the face of an imminent attack. All shinobi, battle stations. Evacuate non-combatants to the shelters. This is not a border skirmish. This is an invasion. He turned to Ben, his eyes blazing. Your device just turned my friend into a lab rat, and developed a weapon that could cripple my entire village. And now the monster you warned us about is here because of it. He stepped close, his voice low and fierce. You have one chance. You help me defend my home. You use that thing, broken or not, to fight. Or I will have you sealed away in the darkest hole we have, and we will face this without you. Choose. Now. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, at the new, terrifying icon. He looked at Hinata, being helped from the room. He looked at Naruto, a man preparing to stand against an alien armada for the sake of every light in the village below. There was no choice. The catalyst had to become the shield. He met Naruto's gaze, his own resolve solidifying. I'll fight. But I need the suppression seals off. I need full access, even if it breaks me. Naruto stared at him for one eternal second, then gave a sharp nod to Kakashi, who made a hand sign. The bands on Ben's wrists dissolved into smoke. The constant, numb buzzing ceased. Ben felt a surge of potential, tainted with fear. Then let's go, Naruto said, heading for the door, his cloak flaring. Show me what the great Ben Tennyson can really do. As they rushed into the chaos of a village preparing for war, the Omnitrix hummed on Ben's wrist, its integration progress ticking slowly upward, a silent, ticking bomb amidst the screaming alarms. The experiment had entered its trial by fire phase. And the first test subjects would be the people of the Hidden Leaf. Chapter 4, The Sky Falls. Konoha was a stirred anthill. Sirens wailed, a sound foreign and metallic against the village's usual ambience. Shinobi erupted onto rooftops, forming defensive perimeters. Civilians, guided by Chunin, streamed towards underground shelters with a discipline born of painful history. The sky, once a serene blue, was now streaked with the fiery contrails of the descending pods. On the Hokage's office roof, Naruto, Ben, and the core command team watched the tactical display. Shikamaru's voice was a rapid, calm stream over the comms. 5 vessels. Triangular formation. Primary target is the village center. They're slowing, controlled descent. Not impactors. Dropships. ETA 90 seconds. Defensive barriers? Naruto asked, his eyes glued to the streaking lights. Barrier team is deploying the 4 violet flames formation around central admin. It won't hold against sustained orbital-grade firepower. Kakashi reported, his Sharingan eye already active, tracking vectors and probabilities. Ben's Omnitrix was scanning the incoming signals. Energy signatures match Vilgaxian troop carriers. Each will deploy a mix of combat drones and likely a handful of Chimera Sui Generis, his elite shock troops. Biologically and cybernetically enhanced. Tough. Don't let them get close. Rules of engagement? Sasuke asked, materializing beside them in a flicker of wind. They are here to take the Omnitrix and harvest this world, Naruto said, his voice stripped of all warmth. There are no civilians in those ships. Eliminate the threat. Protect the village at all costs. He turned to Ben. You said you needed to fight? Where do you need to be? Ben's mind raced. The Omnitrix was still unstable, but the data from Hinata's scan had changed something. The device was no longer blindly afraid of chakra. It was analyzing it, building counter-resonances. It was a dangerous, volatile tool. He couldn't risk a full transformation in the village center. The genetic cascade could be catastrophic. I need an open area. Somewhere with minimal collateral damage if I malfunction. And I need to draw their attention. The Omnitrix is what they want. If I'm a beacon, I can pull them away from populated sectors. Naruto didn't hesitate. Training Ground 44. The Forest of Death. It's already a hazard zone. Kakashi, you're with him. Keep him alive and contained. Sasuke, you're on aerial intercept. Delay those ships, break their formation. I'll coordinate village defense and take the central dropship. He clapped a hand on Ben's shoulder, the grip firm. Don't die. And don't lose that watch to them. The fate of both our worlds might just depend on it. There was no more time for words. In a swirl of leaves, Naruto was gone, a golden streak shooting towards the village center. Sasuke's form blurred and shot skyward, a streak of dark chakra. Kakashi looked at Ben. Hold on tight. This will be disorienting. Before Ben could respond, Kakashi's hand was on his shoulder. The world dissolved into a violent, sucking whirlwind. It wasn't like Naruto's speed. It was a brutal, short-range teleportation, Kamui. They reappeared, stumbling, in a dank, twilight forest of gargantuan trees and thick, predatory vines. The air hummed with the chakra of giant insects and monstrous fauna. The Forest of Death. Overhead, the roar of atmospheric entry became deafening. 4 of the fiery vessels adjusted course, veering away from the village center and towards their location. The 5th continued towards the Hokage Tower. They took the bait, Kakashi observed, pulling his forehead protector up to cover his Sharingan eye, leaving the Rinnegan exposed. Your watch's signal is louder than they anticipated. Now comes the hard part. The first ship screamed overhead, decelerating with a thunderous burst of retro-thrusters that set the ancient trees ablaze. It didn't land. It hovered, and its belly opened. Dozens of the black, insected drones dropped out, followed by 4 hulking, distinct figures. The Chimera sui generis. They were nightmares of fused biology. One had the lower body of a crustacean and the torso of a muscular humanoid, with 4 plasma cannons grafted to its arms. Another was a serpentine creature with metallic wings and a face of shifting, razor-sharp blades. A third was a hulking brute of stone-like hide, with a single, massive crystalline eye. The last was slender, almost feminine, with skin like liquid mercury and hair that writhed like optical cables. The drones fanned out, establishing a perimeter. The Chimera focused on Ben. Target located, Omnitrix bearer. The mercury-skinned one hissed, its voice a synthetic chorus. Surrender the device. Your existence may be permitted as a specimen. Ben's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. No playground scuffle. This was Vilgax's vanguard. He raised his wrist. The Omnitrix dial felt hot. He had to choose. Not his favorites. Not the flashy ones. He needed something that could handle the instability, something durable, with a simple genetic structure. He slammed the dial. We don't do surrenders. Green light engulfed him. The transformation was smoother than last time, but not by much. He felt the chakra-rich environment pushing back, causing ripples of pain as his form solidified. But it held. When the light faded, he stood as Diamond Head. His body was composed of durable, green crystals. It was a solid, mineral-based form. Less complex biology, less for the chakra field to interfere with. He immediately fired a volley of sharp crystal shards from his hands at the nearest drone squad. The drones scattered, but 2 were pierced through their core and shattered. The crystalline chimera, the one with the single eye, took a shard to its chest. It glanced off its stony hide with a spark. Resistance noted. Pattern, crystalline lifeform. Countermeasure, sonic resonance. The mercury chimera's hair-like cables stiffened and emitted a high-pitched shriek. Ben cried out as the sound waves vibrated through his crystalline form. Cracks spiderwebbed across his arm. He was vulnerable to sonic attacks. He tried to reform, to shift, but the Omnitrix was still reeling from the interference. He was stuck. A blur of movement. Kakashi was there. He didn't attack the chimera. He appeared directly in front of Ben, his hands a flash of signs. Earth release, Earth-style wall. A thick dome of earth erupted around them, dampening the sonic scream. You have to change forms, Kakashi snapped. They'll adapt to whatever you are in seconds. I'm trying. The watch is. The dome exploded inward as the brute chimera slammed into it with the force of a meteor. Kakashi shoved Ben aside, taking the brunt of the rubble on a glowing chakra shield that sprang from his arm. He countered with a lightning-fast stab of a kunai charged with lightning chakra, driving it into the brute's knee joint. The creature roared, stumbling. Ben rolled, slamming the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The green light took him, the shift back to human a relief and a vulnerability. He had seconds. He scrolled through the selection. He needed versatility. Something that could counter multiple enemies, something with a robust system. He chose feedback. The transformation was quicker. His body became a being of pure, reddish-pink energy contained within a black and yellow containment suit. Feedback absorbed and redirected energy. It was a gamble. Their tech was plasma-based. If he could absorb it. The serpentine chimera swooped down, its bladed maw open. It fired a stream of molten, metallic slag. Ben raised his hands, the intake ports on his palms flaring. He absorbed the torrent of thermal energy, feeling it surge into him, powering him up. It worked. The chakra interference seemed minimal on this energy-based form. "Hey, ugly! You forgot to pay your heating bill!" He unleashed the absorbed energy, amplified, in a massive pink blast that caught the serpentine chimera full in the chest. It screeched, its metallic wings melting, and crashed into the forest. But the victory was short-lived. The crab-armed chimera had flanked him. All 4 plasma cannons fired at point-blank range, not at Ben, but at the ground around him. The superheated earth exploded, not with energy to absorb, but with concussive force and shrapnel. Ben was hurled backward, his form flickering from the physical shock. Kakashi was a whirlwind, engaging the Mercury Chimera and the drones with a combination of shadow clones, lightning blade strikes, and precise, tactical misdirection. But he was one man. A drone got a lucky shot, a plasma bolt grazing his side. He grunted, his movements faltering for a split second. The Mercury Chimera seized the opening. Its hair cables lashed out, not to attack, but to inject something into Kakashi's neck. A nanosuppressant. Kakashi's chakra flows sputtered. He fell to one knee, his Rinnegan eye dimming. "Superior life form subdued," the chimera intoned, turning its blank face to Ben. "Your protector is neutralized. Your forms are predictable. Surrender." Ben pushed himself up, feedback's form stabilizing. He was surrounded. The brute was recovering. The crystalline one was charging its eye beam. The serpent was wounded but rising. The Mercury one advanced. He was out of options. Out of clever picks. He was going to lose. The Omnitrix would be taken. Konoha would be next. Then, a voice echoed in his mind. Not his own. It was the Omnitrix. A raw data stream, an instinctual suggestion from its newly integrated chakra analysis protocols. It was highlighting a form. Not one of the original 10. A newer, more complex one. One with a chaotic, adaptable genetic structure that might just be chaotic enough to ride out the chakra interference. A high-risk, high-reward option the device would normally never suggest in an unstable environment. Suggestion: Alien X. Reality warping capabilities. Warning: requires consensus of personalities within. Genetic stability in paradox zone, unknown. Probability of catastrophic existential failure, 78%. Alien X. The being of near omnipotent power, trapped by the need for unanimous agreement between its 3 inner personalities. Ben had used it before, at great cost. To use it here, with the Omnitrix unstable, it could unmoor him from reality itself. But Kakashi was down. The village was under attack. Naruto was fighting his own battle. He had no choice. As the crystalline chimera fired its devastating eye beam, Ben slammed the dial, forcing the selection. "It's hero time!" The transformation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The green light didn't just envelop him, it unraveled him. He felt his consciousness stretch, thin, as if being pulled into a vast, star-filled court. The familiar chamber of Alien X's mindscape flickered in and out of existence, static-ridden by golden energy, chakra interference disrupting the very psychic space. He stood in the form of Alien X, a tall, humanoid being with a black body covered in white stars, a galaxy for a torso. But the form was wrong. It glitched. One moment he was Alien X, the next he flickered into a distorted version of feedback, then Diamond Head, then back. The chakra field was preventing a stable lock. Within the fractured mindscape, the 2 personalities, Serene and Bellicus, were not just arguing, they were screaming, their forms distorted. "The external reality is incoherent," Bellicus roared, his voice echoing with static. "We cannot assert will upon a paradox. There is suffering. We must act, even in confusion," Serene pleaded, her form shimmering. Ben's own consciousness, the third vote, felt shredded. He couldn't think. He couldn't form an argument. He could only feel the desperate need to stop them. Outside, in the real world, Alien X's flickering form hovered, causing localized reality storms. Trees twisted into impossible shapes. Gravity failed in pockets. The chimera reeled, their advanced systems scrambling in the face of raw, uncontrolled cosmic power. The Mercury Chimera analyzed the phenomenon, its cold logic reaching a conclusion. Reality alteration entity. Unstable. Catalyzing the local paradox. Target is vulnerable during psychic negotiation. Eliminate the physical vessel. It raised an arm, which reconfigured into a long, spiraling energy lance, aimed at Alien X's flickering chest. A weapon designed to pierce dimensional layers, to kill a being across all planes of existence at once. Kakashi, fighting through the nanosuppressant's fog, saw it. He had one shot. His chakra was crippled. He couldn't use Kamui. He couldn't use Raikiri. He had nothing but the basics, and a lifetime of fighting for his comrades. As the lance charged, Kakashi moved. Not with speed, but with perfect, desperate timing. He threw his last kunai, not at the chimera, but at the ground near the brute's good leg. The brute, instinctively stomping on the perceived threat, shifted its weight. At that exact moment, Kakashi used the absolute minimum chakra he could muster for a replacement technique. He swapped places with a burning log near the Mercury Chimera. The lance fired. It didn't hit Alien X. The brute, off balance, stumbled into the line of fire. The dimensional lance struck it square in the back. The brute didn't scream. It simply unfolded, its existence erased from that point in space-time in a silent, terrifying bloom of non-light. The backlash from the weapon's discharge in the unstable reality field hit the Mercury Chimera like a tidal wave. It was hurled back, its systems frying. The shockwave also hit Alien X's flickering form. In the mindscape, the collision of forces, dimensional weapon discharge, chakra paradox, unstable transformation, was catastrophic. It acted as a violent reset. Bellicus, Serene, and Ben's consciousness were slammed together by the external trauma. A single, unified thought emerged from the chaos, not from agreement, but from sheer, overwhelming survival instinct: stop. In the real world, Alien X's form stabilized for 1 microsecond. A wave of absolute nullification pulsed out from it. Not creation. Not destruction. Cessation. The pulse washed over the clearing. The remaining drones simply stopped functioning, dropping from the sky like stones. The serpentine chimera wound ceased to bleed. It froze mid-struggle, in a state of perfect, living stasis. The crystalline chimera's charging eye-beam winked out. The Mercury chimera lay sparking, immobilized. The pulse did not affect Kakashi. It did not affect the trees or the fire. It only targeted the actively hostile, technologically advanced alien systems. It was a perfectly targeted reality edit, born of chaos and desperation. Then, with a sound like a universe sighing, Alien X's form dissolved. Ben collapsed to the forest floor, human, vomiting violently, his nose bleeding, every nerve ending on fire. The Omnitrix on his wrist was dark, its faceplate cracked. A smoking, black burn now marred its surface where the dial had been. It was dead. Or dormant. Kakashi crawled over to him, his own face pale with pain and toxin. "Are you intact?" Ben could only gasp, clutching his wrist. The weight was gone. The constant hum of potential, the companion he'd had since he was 10, was silent. A profound emptiness echoed in its place, deeper than any wound. Overhead, the roar of battle continued from the village. But in the forest of death, there was only sudden, eerie quiet, broken by the crackle of fires and the frozen tableau of defeated aliens. Ben looked at Kakashi, then at the dead watch. He had used the ultimate power, and it had broken his only key to it. He had stopped the immediate threat, at a cost he couldn't yet quantify. "I think," Ben croaked, his voice raw, "I just broke the universe's best tool." Kakashi followed his gaze to the smoldering Omnitrix, then to the frozen chimera. "Perhaps," he said wearily, pulling himself up to sit against a tree. "Or perhaps it finally did what it was meant to do. It adapted." He looked at Ben, his visible eye holding a new, grim respect. "Now we have to hope that adaptation didn't just save us, but didn't do much either. Can you move? The Hokage still needs us." Ben stared at the silent watch. The beacon was gone. The pull was stopped. But the invaders were already here. And he was just a human now, in a world of monsters and shinobi, with a broken key and a lock that had started a war. Chapter 5: The Broken Key. The silence of the dead Omnitrix was a physical void on Ben's wrist. He felt its absence like a phantom limb, a gap in his personal universe where cosmic potential had hummed for over a decade. He was led, half-carried, really, back to Konoha by a team of medical nin who found them in the smoldering forest of death. Kakashi, limping from his wound and the nanosuppressant's after-effects, gave a terse report to the command post via radio. Konoha was scarred but standing. The central dropship had been a brutal fight. Naruto, employing a staggering array of shadow clones, Rasengan variants, and Sage Mode, had dismantled it piece by piece, but not before its energy cannons had gouged a smoking crater where a market district once stood. Casualties were mounting. The air was thick with the smell of ozone, burning wood, and something acrid and alien. Ben was taken not to the hospital, but to a heavily fortified underground chamber within the Hokage complex, a strategic planning bunker. The walls were lined with maps and sensor feeds. Naruto stood at the center, his Hokage cloak torn and smudged with soot. There was a cut on his cheek, and his eyes held the flat, hard light of a man assessing the cost. Sasuke, Shikamaru, Sakura, and a few senior jonin were present. All eyes turned to Ben as he was helped to a seat. "Report," Naruto said, his voice gravelly. Kakashi leaned against the wall, conserving energy. For Chimera-class hostiles, plus drone support, engaged in Training Ground 44. Ben utilized multiple transformations under heavy chakra interference. Engaged a final, high-risk form that induced a localized reality alteration event. The form was unstable. The hostile leader employed a dimensional-piercing weapon. I interfered. The weapon's discharge, combined with the unstable transformation, resulted in a cessation pulse. All hostiles in the vicinity were neutralized, some erased, others placed in a state of permanent stasis. Ben's device overloaded and deactivated. It is non-functional. He pointed to Ben's wrist. The Omnitrix lay there, a circle of cracked, blackened metal and dead crystal. No green light. No holograms. Just a scarred piece of tech. The room absorbed this. Shikamaru was the first to speak, walking over to examine the device with a cautious, glowing hand. No energy signature. Not even residual. It's a complete burnout. The core seems fused. The beacon? Sasuke asked. Gone. Shikamaru confirmed. Whatever signal was pulling things here has ceased. The dimensional scar at Sector 7 is fading rapidly. It seems the stabilization protocol terminated with the device's failure. A wave of palpable, grim relief washed through the bunker. The immediate crisis, the unnatural pull on their world, was over. Naruto didn't look relieved. He looked at Ben, who sat staring at his own hands, trembling slightly from adrenaline crash and something deeper, a profound disorientation. The price? Naruto asked quietly. Ben finally looked up. I don't know. The form, it was Alien X. It can rewrite reality. But it requires agreement between 3 personalities inside. The chakra interference shattered that space. We didn't agree. We were forced into a single thought by the shock of the weapon blast. We told everything to stop. And it did. He swallowed. I think we broke physics a little. And I think the Omnitrix broke trying to process it. Sakura approached, her medical chakra glowing as she scanned him. Your biosignature is erratic. You have minor physical trauma, but there's a metaphysical residue. Your own energy field is imprinted with echoes of that event. It's like chakra, but not. It's foreign, and it's dormant. So the watch is dead, Naruto summarized, crossing his arms. The pull is gone. But we have confirmed hostile alien forces with orbital capabilities aware of our world and its unique resources. And Ben is now a powerless anomaly in the middle of a war zone. He paused. What happened to the Chimera Sui Generis? The ones in stasis? Kakashi answered. Contained by a perimeter team. They are frozen. No metabolic activity, no energy emission. They are statues. Attempts to move one resulted in no change. They are, for all intents and purposes, part of the landscape now. Study them, Naruto ordered. Everything. Biology, technology, everything. We need to know our enemy. He turned his gaze back to Ben. It wasn't hostile. It was analytical, weary. You kept your word. You fought. You broke your power to stop them. That means something. But your presence here is still the root cause. The threat isn't gone, it's just changed shape. I know, Ben said, his voice hollow. The emptiness on his wrist was terrifying. For so long, any problem had a greenlit solution. Now he was just Ben Tennyson, 20-year-old human, in a world where people could breathe fire and walk on water. What do you want me to do? Naruto was silent for a long moment, studying the cracked watch face. Shikamaru. Can our people learn anything from that? Even dead? Shikamaru exhaled a long, tired breath. Troublesome. Its technology so far beyond us it might as well be magic. But we have the stasis-bound Chimera. Their tech is likely derived from the same source. We could attempt a comparative analysis. But it would require someone who understands the fundamental principles. Someone who knows what the Omnitrix was supposed to do. All eyes returned to Ben. You want me to help you reverse engineer alien technology, Ben said flatly. I want you to help us defend this world you brought trouble to, Naruto corrected. You have knowledge. That's your power now. We have the resources and the need. You work with our R&D, under supervision. You help us understand what we're up against, and maybe, how to build something that can fight it. You earn your place here. Not as a prisoner, not as a guest. As a consultant. A specialist. It was a lifeline. A purpose. It was also a cage of a different kind. And if I say no? Then you are a humanitarian refugee from a conflict you caused, Naruto said, his tone leaving no doubt about the severity of the situation. You will be housed, fed, and kept secure until such a time as we can find a way to send you home, which, given the current circumstances, may be never. You will live a quiet, observed life. Your choice. Ben looked around the bunker at the faces of these warriors, scarred by a battle that was his fault. He thought of the 2 dead shinobi from the first drone attack. He thought of the smoking crater in the market. The weight of the dead Omnitrix was nothing compared to the weight of that responsibility. He had spent his life being a hero with a quick fix. Now, the fix was broken. All that was left was the hard, slow, unglamorous work of cleaning up the mess. He met Naruto's steady gaze. "I'll help. But I have conditions. No live dissection of the Chimera. They're frozen, but they might still be aware. It's inhumane. And I need access to any data we can pull from their systems. If there's a way to contact my people, the plumbers, a legitimate interstellar peacekeeping force, we need to find it. Vilgax won't stop with one failed drop." Naruto considered, then nodded. "Agreed. Sakura will oversee any biological study with a focus on understanding, not cruelty. Shikamaru will lead the tech analysis. You will be attached to his team. Sasuke will be your liaison. He's our best at dealing with extraterrestrial anomalies." A ghost of a smile touched Naruto's lips. "Try not to annoy him too much." Sasuke's expression did not change. The following days settled into a strange, grim rhythm. Ben was given quarters in the Jonin standby barracks, Spartan but private. His movements were not restricted, but he was always accompanied, usually by a quiet ANBU operative or, more often, by Sasuke, who said little but saw everything. The research took place in a sealed lab built into the cliffs beneath the Hokage rock. The 3 frozen chimera were the centerpiece, held in stasis fields of Konoha's own design, based on preliminary scans of the cessation pulse residue. Shikamaru, his son Shikadai, and a team of Fuinjutsu specialists and mechanics worked around the clock. Ben's role was that of a translator. He explained plasma dynamics, neural network architectures, Vilgaxian materials science. He pointed out power couplings, data ports, potential weak points in the armor. In return, he was given a crash course in chakra theory, in Fuinjutsu as a programming language for reality, in the sheer versatility of shinobi tools. It was during the 3rd day, while examining the crystalline chimera's shattered eyelids, that Shikadai made a discovery. "Ben, look at this," he said, manipulating a chakra probe scanner. "The energy discharge pattern from their weapons, it's not just plasma. There's a modulating frequency layered underneath. It's designed to interfere with cohesive energy fields." Ben leaned in. The scanner's readout was a mess of waveforms, but one subfrequency was familiar. "That's a disruptive harmonic. It's used to break force fields, diffuse energy-based life forms." He trailed off, a cold realization dawning. "It's also a crude version of the anti-chakra resonance the Omnitrix started to develop. They're already weaponizing the concept. They scanned the environment during the drone attack and adapted their tech." Shikamaru's face darkened. "So they're not just here for the watch or for conquest. They're here to learn how to neutralize us. To turn our greatest strength into a vulnerability." Later, alone with Sasuke in a quiet corner of the lab, Ben voiced the fear that had been gnawing at him. "They're studying us. Vilgax doesn't just want to destroy things he can't have. He wants to own them. If he can't get the Omnitrix, he'll take the next best thing, the knowledge of how to defeat an entire planet of chakra users." Sasuke was cleaning a long, Chikuto sword. "Then we must learn faster than they do." He sheathed the blade with a soft click. "Your device is dead. But the knowledge it sought to integrate, the knowledge of chakra, it began that process with Hirta Hinata." Ben froze. "The scan. It got 12%. "A blueprint," Sasuke said. "That data was in its systems when it overloaded. Where did it go?" A new, different kind of dread crept over Ben. "You think it imprinted it somewhere? On me? On the environment?" "I think a tool that sophisticated does not simply delete unique data upon failure," Sasuke said, his Rinnegan eye seeming to peer through Ben. "It may have distributed it. Or cached it. We need to examine the site of the overload. The Forest of Death." Naruto authorized the expedition. A team consisting of Sasuke, Ben, Sakura, for biological analysis, and a Fuinjutsu expert named Yuhi Kurinai descended into the eerily quiet clearing. The scene was surreal. The drones were rusting husks, their internal systems corroded at an accelerated rate. The frozen chimera stood like macabre sculptures. The very air felt thick, silent, as if sound itself was hesitant to travel here. Sakura scanned the area with her chakra. "The residual energy is complex. It's not just dead alien tech. There's a layer of something else. Faint, woven into the fabric of this place. Like a scar made of ideas." Kurinai, her hands weaving intricate signs, performed a sensory genjutsu to visualize the non-physical residues. The clearing shimmered. Etched into the air, the earth, the frozen bodies, were faint, golden lines, the ghostly imprint of Hinata's chakra network map, fused with the stark, geometric patterns of Omnitrix code and the chaotic scribble of Alien X's reality warping backlash. "It's here," Kurinai breathed, her voice full of awe and horror. The data. It wasn't destroyed. It was blasted into the local reality like a tattoo. This clearing is now a living recording of the event, and of the chakra blueprint. Ben stared at the shimmering golden weave in the air. He felt a strange pull, a resonance. He took a step forward, into the pattern. As he did, the dead omnitrix on his wrist gave a single, weak sputter. A jagged line of green light, like a lightning bolt, cracked across its blackened face. It was gone in an instant. But in that instant Ben saw. Not with his eyes. In his mind. A flood of information, the 12% integration data. He saw the Tenketsu points not as a medical chart, but as a cosmic circuit diagram. He saw chakra not as magic, but as a programmable energy field generated by conscious will interacting with a receptive universe. He understood, in a flash of impossible intuition, the theory behind a Rasengan, a fireball, a shadow clone. Then it was gone, leaving him staggering, a sharp pain behind his eyes. What happened? Sasuke was at his side instantly. It showed me. Ben gasped. The data. It's in the watch. Not working, but stored. And it's echoed here. This place is a backup drive. Sakura was by him, scanning. Your neural activity just spiked in patterns consistent with information transfer. Your brain received data. Are you alright? Before Ben could answer, a new voice cut through the clearing, synthesized and cold, emanating from the frozen Mercury Chimera. Scan complete. Data fragment recovered, Chakra Principle Alpha. Transmission initiated. A tiny, hidden compartment on the Chimera's back had activated, firing a compressed data pulse as a laser beamed straight up into the sky, piercing the atmosphere in a microsecond. Sasuke moved, his Chikuto a blur, severing the compartment. But it was too late. The pulse was gone. The frozen Chimera's face seemed to crack into something like a smile. The warlord thanks you for the sample. Expect refinement. Then, its systems truly spent, the stasis field holding it collapsed. It crumbled into a pile of inert gray dust. The clearing was silent once more, the implication screaming. The enemy hadn't just been studying from afar. They'd been listening. Using their frozen comrade as a spy, waiting for someone to uncover the secret it had died next to. And they had just stolen the first, crucial piece of the puzzle. Ben looked from the dust that was the Chimera to the dead Omnitrix, which now felt not just broken, but violated. He had come here to help defend a secret. And he had just handed a piece of it to the enemy on a silver platter. He looked at Sasuke, whose face was stone. They have it, Ben whispered, the weight of his new, terrible knowledge crushing him. They have the blueprint. Sasuke's hand tightened on his sword. Then the war, he said, his voice like the edge of a blade, enters its next phase. They will now build a key to our lock. We must build a better lock. And you, Ben Tennyson, must become more than a translator. You must learn what you saw. You must learn to use it. The broken key had just been copied by the thief. The only response was to change the lock. And Ben, stripped of his alien forms, would have to learn to become something new, something born of two clashing worlds, a shinobi of human flesh, wielding the ghost of a watch's understanding. The burden of power had not lifted, it had metamorphosed into something far more personal, and far more dangerous. Chapter 6: The Unwilling Student. The air in the Hokage's office was thick with the smell of ozone from the damaged village and the sharper scent of tension. Naruto listened to Sasuke's report, his face a mask of grim focus. When Sasuke finished detailing the data theft, Naruto's gaze settled on Ben like a physical weight. They have a fragment, Naruto stated, his voice low. A blueprint. How much of a threat is that? Ben, still feeling the ghost echo of the chakra data in his synapses, tried to think like Azimuth, like a scientist. It's a principle. A theory of operation. It's like giving Leonardo da Vinci a blurry photo of a jet engine. He'd understand it produces thrust, but he wouldn't know the metallurgy, the fuel mixture, the computer controls. They know chakra exists and its basic architecture. They don't know how to generate it, how to control it, or its profound connection to emotion, will, and biology. Yet, Shikamaru echoed, leaning over the strategy table. Vilgax has resources we can't fathom. If he dedicates his labs to reverse engineering that principle, he could develop technology to disrupt, drain, or even mimic chakra. The drone's weapons already had a primitive version. Now they have the schematic to build a better one. Sasuke spoke from his place by the window, his back to the room. The boy saw the data. He understood it, momentarily. His mind interpreted it. All eyes turned to Ben. It was intuitive, Ben admitted, rubbing his temples where a dull ache persisted. I didn't learn how to do a jutsu. I understood why a jutsu works. The relationship between shape transformation, nature transformation, and the user's will. It's a science, but one where the scientist's emotions are a reagent. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Can you replicate that understanding? Can you learn to use chakra? The question hung in the air. Ben, the wielder of a million alien powers, being asked to master one fundamental, native one. The irony was bitter. I don't have the biology for it, Ben said. The Omnitrix scan showed that. Chakra is a synthesis of physical and spiritual energy unique to your species' evolution. I'm human, but from a baseline where that synthesis never developed. My spiritual energy might be configured differently. But you have a mind that comprehends the theory. Sakura interjected, her medical curiosity piqued. And you have a body that has been saturated with intense, alien energies for a decade. Your cells, your very being, have been rewritten countless times. You are an anomaly. The rules may not apply to you in a standard way. Naruto made a decision. We test it. Sasuke, you're the best at chakra control theory. You train him. Start with the absolute basics. See if he can so much as feel his own energy. If he can't, he's no use to us in this regard. If he can. He left the sentence unfinished, but the implication was clear. If Ben could learn, he could become a new kind of weapon in this war, one who understood both sides of the coming conflict. Ben wanted to protest. He was a plumber, an alien fighter, not a ninja student. But the hollow silence of the Omnitrix on his wrist was a constant rebuke. His old power was gone. His knowledge was all he had left. And if that knowledge could be turned into a skill, into a way to protect the people he'd endangered. All right, Ben said, the word tasting of dust. I'll try. Training did not take place on a sunny field with a wise, old master. It took place in a sealed, sensory deprivation chamber deep underground, a room designed to strip away all distraction. The walls were lined with chakra-dampening seals, creating a neutral void. Sasuke stood across from him, his expression impassive. Forget everything you think you know about power. Chakra is not a battery you charge. It is not an external force you call upon. It is you. Every cell in your body produces physical energy. Your consciousness, your experiences, your will, that is your spiritual energy. Chakra is the product of mixing the two. He held up a single leaf. The first exercise. Adhere this leaf to your palm using only chakra. Not glue. Not sweat. A fine, constant emission that creates a bond. To do this, you must first find the energy within you, draw it to a specific point, and control its output with perfect precision. Ben took the leaf. It was just a leaf. He focused on his hand, trying to remember the ghostly network he'd seen in the forest. He willed something, anything, to happen. Nothing. For hours, nothing. His hand grew sweaty. The leaf stuck due to moisture, then fell. He grew frustrated, then numb. Sasuke said nothing, merely observing with his Rinnegan eye, which likely saw Ben's complete and utter lack of internal energy flow. This is pointless. Ben finally snapped, on the third hour of the third day. I'm a different model. The wiring isn't there. You are thinking of it as wiring, Sasuke said, his first words in an hour. It is not machinery. It is life. You have fought with the power of 100 different lives inside you. You have been crystalline, electrical, aquatic, cosmic. Each of those transformations required you to believe, for a moment, that you were that being. To accept its nature as your own. That is a profound exercise of spiritual energy, of will-shaping biology. Ben paused. He'd never thought of it that way. Transforming wasn't just a physical change, it was a mental shift. To become Heat Blast, he had to embrace being a living star. To become gray matter, he had to think in fractal logic puzzles. That was will-influencing form. Close your eyes, Sasuke instructed. Do not seek chakra. Seek the memory of transformation. The moment of becoming. Find the feeling of potential, of change. That feeling is the raw material. Now, instead of letting it rewrite your entire body, try to localize it. Just in your hand. Not to change it, but to awaken it. Ben closed his eyes. He pushed aside the frustration, the fear, the hollow grief for the Omnitrix. He reached back into a memory. He chose a simple form, Violet. The instinctual, nonverbal, pure sensory experience of being the Volpomancer. The world as scent and sound and heat. He focused on that feeling, that animalistic aliveness, and tried to pour just the essence of it, not the DNA, but the vibrant, physical will of it, into his right hand. He felt a warmth. Not heat, but a vibration. A faint, tingling buzz just beneath his skin. He opened his eyes. The leaf on his palm was trembling. Not stuck. But it was vibrating in tune with his hand. Sasuke's eyebrow lifted a millimeter. Interesting. You are not generating chakra in the conventional sense. You are imprinting a foreign energy pattern, a memory of alien biology, onto your own cells. It is a facsimile. A mimicry. But it is energy. He stepped closer, his Rinnegan spinning slowly. Now refine it. The wild mutt is chaotic, sensory. Choose a form with control. Precision. Ben thought. Precision. Diamond head. The rigid, crystalline structure. Perfect control. He focused on that memory, the feeling of absolute solidity, of light refracting through perfect facets. He channeled that sensation of ordered structure into the buzz in his hand. The vibration smoothed, becoming a steady, gentle hum. The leaf quivered, then settled. Slowly, as if magnetized, it adhered to the center of his palm. It wasn't stuck by glue or force. It was held in a tiny, perfect field of structured energy. Ben stared, a shock of pure, undiluted wonder rushing through him. He'd done it. Not the way a shinobi would. He'd hacked it. Using the ghost in his machine. Do not become excited. You are powering a light bulb with a lightning bolt, Sasuke said, though there was a new sharpness in his gaze. The energy is unstable, borrowed, and tied to your psychological connection to those alien forms. It is not true chakra. It is a psychic resonance given physical expression. A parlor trick with dangerous implications. But it works, Ben breathed, his heart pounding. For now. And only for that. Sasuke pointed to the leaf. The moment your concentration wavers, or you try to shape it into something more complex, it will collapse. Or worse, feed back into your system. You are building a house on a foundation of borrowed memories. It is fragile. But it was a foundation. For the next week, Ben trained under Sasuke's relentless, minimalist instruction. He learned to summon the resonant energy. He refused to call it chakra. To his feet, allowing him to walk up the wall of the training chamber for a few precarious seconds before the memory form would fade and he'd fall. He learned to pull it in his lungs, not to breathe fire, but to exhale a gust of wind that could extinguish a candle at 5 paces. Each feat was a monumental effort of focus, each one tied to a specific alien's feeling. He was not becoming a shinobi. He was becoming a living symphony of echoes, a one-man phantom playlist. During breaks, he would return to the lab with Shikamaru. The mood there had shifted from analysis to active development. Using Ben's explanations and the scavenged tech from the drones, Konoha's craftsmen were attempting the impossible, to build human technology that could interact with chakra-disruptive fields. One afternoon, Shikamaru showed him a prototype. It was a kunai, but its blade was etched with microcircuits based on Vilgaxian designs and inlaid with chakra-conductive ore. We're calling it a null kunai, Shikamaru said, looking exhausted but focused. When charged with a specific frequency of chakra, modeled on the disruptive harmonic, it should be able to temporarily sever an enemy's chakra flow on contact, like a high-tech gentle fist strike. In theory. In theory, Ben agreed, hefting the weapon. It felt wrong in his hand, a hybrid thing. Have you tested it? On inanimate objects with simulated chakra fields. It works for a nanosecond before the crystal matrix burns out. We need a better power source. Something more energetic. Ben looked at the dead Omnitrix on his wrist. A power source. The ultimate one. He had a mad thought. The Omnitrix is dead. But its core, the codon stream's energy cell, it might still have residual charge. Even a fraction of its power could. Shikamaru's eyes widened. You want us to cannibalize your watch? To use it as a battery? It's not a watch, Ben said, a strange finality in his voice. It's a corpse. If its parts can help defend this place, then that's what it should do. It's what Azimuth would want. Preservation of life. The decision was made with Naruto's approval. With immense care, under Ben's guidance, the fused casing of the Omnitrix was opened in a sterile, high-security lab. Inside, it was a masterpiece of microengineering that made Konoha's finest fuinjutsu look like cave paintings. The central core was a tiny, dormant green crystal, dark and silent. But when a diagnostic probe touched it with a minuscule charge, it flickered once, emitting a pulse of data. It wasn't about chakra. It was a final log entry, a last message from the device's higher functions, stored in the core's protected memory. Ben, Shikamaru, and Naruto, who had come to observe, watched as a hologram, glitchy and faint, resolved above the crystal. It was not Azimuth. It was a schematic of the solar system, with Konoha's planet highlighted. Lines of probability extended from it, showing gravitational links to other points in spacetime, the pull of the stabilization protocol. Then, a new image, a massive, pyramidal ship, sleek and predatory, hanging in the dark beyond the system's outermost planet. It was marked with Vilgax's sigil. The hologram zoomed in, showing energy readings. The ship was not approaching. It was waiting. Deploying stealth probes. Scanning. A status line flashed. Primary hostile force, Vilgax flagship Chimera destroyer. Status, holding at system edge. Analysis, conducting full spectral analysis of local paradox, chakra. Estimated completion of countermeasure development, 23 days. Threat prognosis, planetary subjugation/biomass harvest. The hologram sputtered and died. The core crystal went dark, its last bit of archival energy spent. The room was tomb silent. 23 days. Vilgax wasn't launching another reckless invasion. He was being methodical, scientific. He was using the stolen data fragment to build the ultimate chakra-negating weapon on a planetary scale. He was going to disarm the entire world in one stroke, then harvest it at his leisure. Naruto's hands were clenched into fists so tight his knuckles were white. He's not coming back for a fight. He's coming back to turn off the lights and take everything in the dark. Ben stared at the disassembled, dead Omnitrix, its guts exposed on the table. Its final act had not been to save him. It had been to deliver a death sentence for a world. The core, Ben said, his voice barely audible. Can it power your null weapons? Shikamaru, face pale, examined the tiny crystal. The energy signature, it's inert, but the structure is perfect. If we could somehow jumpstart it, even for a moment, and channel its output, maybe. But we have nothing that could activate it. It requires a genetic key or a command from the azimuth entity. Ben looked at his own hands, still tingling from the morning's training, from the echo of alien memories. He was not a genetic key anymore. The watch was dead. But he was a repository of those memories, a walking, talking resonance chamber. A terrible, desperate idea began to form. It was not a solution. It was a Hail Mary pass with a live grenade. What if, Ben said slowly, you don't jumpstart it to power a weapon? What if you use it as the ultimate focus? A lens. You channel my resonant energy, my fake chakra, through this crystal. The Omnitrix core was designed to process and perfect genetic energy. Maybe it can process and amplify this echo. Turn a parlor trick into a pulse. Naruto's eyes locked onto his. What would that do? I don't know, Ben admitted. It could amplify the null effect, create a localized zone where chakra just doesn't work. A bigger version of what the kunai is supposed to do. Or it could backfire and unravel my energy pattern, maybe my mind along with it. Or it could do nothing. 23 days, Shikamaru murmured, running a hand through his hair. We don't have time to refine the kunai. We need an area denial weapon. A shield, not a sword. Naruto was silent for a long time, looking from the dead core to Ben's resolute, frightened face. He saw the boy who had crashed into their world, the overconfident hero broken into a determined, desperate man. Work on it, Naruto ordered. Ben, you and Sasuke double the training. Push your limits. Shikamaru, design the focusing apparatus. We have one shot to build a surprise for the monster waiting in our sky. We make a weapon he can't anticipate, from a power he thinks is dead. As they left the lab, Ben looked back at the opened Omnitrix. It looked small, and sad, and incredibly fragile. He had spent his life depending on it. Now, he was proposing to use its corpse as a battery for a power that wasn't even real. The student had no master, the key was broken, and the only lesson left was how to make a stand when you had nothing left to lose but the echoes of what you once were. The countdown had begun, not in days but in the fragile, fleeting moments of borrowed memory he could sustain. Chapter 7, The Echo Chamber. The next week was a blur of pain, frustration, and surreal breakthroughs. Training with Sasuke escalated from meditation and leaf sticking to something far more demanding and dangerous. They moved from the sterile chamber to a training ground scarred by old battles. Sasuke stood across from Ben, his single visible eye assessing. Your echoes are tied to emotional and sensory memory, Sasuke stated. To be useful, they must be divorced from nostalgia and made into tools. You must be able to access them under duress, in sequence, and blend them. We will start with pressure. Without warning, Sasuke flicked a hand. 3 shuriken whistled towards Ben, aimed not to kill, but to maim, at his legs, his shoulder. Instinct screamed for the Omnitrix. It answered with silence. Panic flooded Ben's system. He stumbled back, the shuriken embedding in the ground where he'd been. Your enemies will not wait for you to recall the feeling of being Diamond Head, Sasuke said, his voice devoid of mockery, simply factual. Again. This time, he used a low-level genjutsu, a simple illusion of the ground erupting with spikes. Ben's mind knew it wasn't real, but his body flinched. In that moment of startled recoil, Sasuke was upon him, a kunai at his throat. Dead. Ben shoved the kunai hand aside, a purely human move, and scrambled back, his heart hammering. I can't just turn it on like a switch. You have for 10 years, Sasuke countered, sheathing the kunai. A different switch, but the same principle, need. Your need now is not to become an alien. It is to survive. Find the echo that serves survival. Now. He attacked again, a blur of controlled motion. Ben dodged a kick, blocked a punch with a forearm that went numb from the impact. He was outclassed in every physical metric. Desperation clawed at him. He needed speed. Not XLR8 speed, just more than he had. He reached for the memory of XLR8. Not the full transformation, the sensation. The world slowing down, friction vanishing, the sheer joy of velocity. He pushed that feeling into his legs. A surge of unnatural energy, shaky and wild, shot through his muscles. He didn't become faster. His legs vibrated, a blur of motion that was more seizure than sprint. He shot sideways, but with no control, careening into a tree trunk with a sickening thud. He collapsed, gasping, the echo fleeing as pain took its place. Sasuke walked over, looking down at him. Uncontrolled power is a liability. You must command the echo, not let it command you. You sought speed. You achieved chaotic oscillation. You must define the parameters. Precision. It was grueling, humiliating work. Day after day, Ben was pushed to his physical and mental limits, forced to conjure echoes under stress. He learned to summon the rigid control of Diamond Head to stabilize a shaking limb. He used the thermoregulation memory of Heat Blast to withstand a blast from a training log fire jutsu, not by absorbing it, but by distributing the heat across his skin so it didn't burn. He used the multidirectional awareness of forearms to anticipate attacks from two training dummies at once. It was never perfect. It was a constant battle against feedback, headaches, and a deep, psychic fatigue that sleep didn't cure. He was painting with borrowed brushes, and his canvas was his own straining nervous system. Meanwhile, in the lab, Shikamaru and his team worked on the focusing apparatus. They named it the Aegis Lens. It was a chest plate of interlaced materials, Konoha's finest chakra-conductive metals, salvaged Vilgaxian circuit boards, and at its heart, a socket designed to hold the dormant Omnitrix core crystal. Wires and seal paper channels radiated from it, meant to be attached to Ben's major Tenketsu points, or where those points would be on a human who had them. The theory is, Shikamaru explained, pointing to schematics that gave Ben a headache. You will channel your resonant energy into the lens. The core crystal, even dormant, has a perfect crystalline structure attuned to manipulating life energy. It should act as a resonator and amplifier, focusing your disparate echoes into a coherent field. If we've calibrated it correctly using the stolen data, the field should project a localized anti-chakra frequency. And if you haven't? Ben asked, staring at the ominous-looking device. Then it could amplify the feedback and turn your brain into soup, or create an unstable spatial anomaly, or simply do nothing, Shikamaru said with brutal honesty. It's a gamble. But the alternative is waiting for Vilgax to flip the off switch on our entire civilization. On the 14th day of the 23-day countdown, during a rare break, Ben found himself on a high balcony of the Hokage Tower, looking out at the rebuilding village. The crater was being filled. Life went on, oblivious to the sword hanging in the sky. Naruto joined him, leaning on the railing. He didn't speak for a while, just watched his people. You're pushing yourself hard, Naruto finally said. I don't have a choice, Ben replied. There's always a choice. You could walk away. We'd contain you, but you'd live. Ben shook his head, watching a group of children playing ninja in a distant park. I brought this. I have to see it through. It's what my grandpa taught me. It's just what you do. Naruto nodded slowly. I had a teacher who taught me something similar. He said those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. You're not my comrade, Ben. Not yet. But you're not abandoning us. That counts for something. He turned to face Ben, his expression serious. Sasuke's reports are concerning. He says you're making progress, but the energy is eating at you. It's not sustainable. You're burning memories for fuel. What happens when the memories run out? Ben hadn't let himself think about that. Each echo felt fainter after heavy use, like a song played too many times on a worn tape. I don't know. I just need enough to make the Aegis lens work once. And after? Naruto pressed. If we survive this, you'll be a husk. A man who used up his own past to power a weapon. The truth of it was a cold stone in Ben's gut. Then that's the price. One life, traded for a planet. It's simple math. Naruto's eyes flashed with something fierce. It's never simple math. I've had that calculus done on me my whole life. The village's weapon. The container of the nine tails. A life traded for stability. That path leads to darkness, Ben. To becoming the very thing you're fighting. He sighed, the anger bleeding into weariness. We're not asking for your life. We're asking for your help. There's a difference. Don't confuse sacrifice with suicide. We need you thinking, adapting. Not as a bomb, but as a soldier. The words struck a chord deep within Ben. He'd spent so long being the solution, the transformation that fixed everything, that the idea of being just one part of a larger strategy, a soldier and not a savior, was strangely foreign and liberating. "I'll try," Ben said, and meant it differently this time. The final week was a sprint. Ben and Sasuke focused on one thing: stabilization. Not power, not variety. Ben learned to hold a single, strong echo, the durable, grounded resonance of Terra Spin, for extended periods, creating a personal, inertial dampening field that could deflect minor projectiles and blunt physical blows. It was a defensive shell, the most stable construct he could manage. In the lab, the Aegis lens was completed. It was heavier than it looked. The day before the projected deadline, they conducted the first integration test in a maximum security bunker. Ben stood in the center, shirtless. Sakura carefully attached the sensor leads to his skin at key nerve clusters. The cold metal of the lens was secured against his chest. The dead Omnitrix core, now housed in the central socket, felt like a hole over his heart. "Initiating low-power test," Shikamaru said from behind a reinforced console. "Channeled the Terra Spin resonance. Gently." Ben closed his eyes, finding the memory. The slow, patient, enduring spirit of the Geocellone Aereo. The feeling of being an unshakable mountain in the wind. He pushed that echo, not outwards, but into the connections on his chest. The lens hummed. The core crystal remained dark, but the Vilgaxian circuits glowed with a faint, orange light. A shimmering, faintly greenish field, like heat haze, expanded from Ben to a radius of about 3 meters. "Field is active," Shikadai called out. Reading as, "a complex dampening wave. It's not pure anti-chakra. It's layered. There's a psychic component, a physical inertia component, it's a mess, but it's coherent." Sasuke, standing at the edge of the field, formed a hand sign. "Fire release, great fireball technique." A massive fireball roared from his mouth, aimed at the ceiling above Ben. As it passed through the greenish haze, the fireball didn't extinguish. It slowed. Its violent, chakra-driven fury dampened. The flames became lethargic, the structure weakening. It hit the ceiling not as explosive jutsu, but as a wave of hot, dissipating gas, scorching but not destroying. "Effect confirmed," Sasuke said, a note of surprise in his voice. "It does not negate. It pacifies. It reduces the will behind the chakra, the coherence. It's turning ninjutsu into parlor tricks." Shikamaru mused, analyzing the data. "That could be even more effective. Confusion, loss of control. But the range is minimal. And the energy draw on Ben is significant." Ben was sweating, a sharp headache building behind his eyes. Holding the echo steady while feeding it into the lens was like trying to hold a powerful hose perfectly still. After 2 minutes, his concentration broke. The field collapsed. He sagged, Sakura immediately at his side with a restorative chakra infusion. "It works," Ben panted, a grim smile on his face. "It's not a planet killer. It's a room clearer." "It's a start," Naruto said, who had been observing silently. "If Vilgax sends his elite, his chimera, this could level the playing field. But we need to lure them into its range. And we need to protect Ben while he's powering it. He's a stationary target." A strategy began to form, a desperate, layered defense. The Aegis lens would be the core of Konoha's final stand. They would let Vilgax think he had won, let his forces push deep into the village, and then spring the trap. On the evening of the 22nd day, as a tense quiet settled over Konoha, Ben was in the barracks, checking the fittings on the lens. Sasuke entered without a sound. "You are afraid," Sasuke stated. "Wouldn't you be?" Ben replied, not looking up. "Fear is irrelevant. It is the acceptance of consequence that matters." Sasuke placed something on the table next to Ben. It was a simple, well-made kunai, but the blade was the prototype null blade. "You have learned to defend. You may also need to attack. This does not require chakra. Only a good arm and an opening. It disrupts on contact. Aim for joints, sensory apparatus." Ben picked up the kunai. It was balanced. "Real. Thanks." Sasuke was silent for a moment, then spoke again, his voice quieter. "Naruto sees his younger self in you. A container of great power, isolated, used as a tool. He is trying to save you from that path. Do not mistake his compassion for weakness. And do not throw your life away to prove you are not a burden. Your worth is not in your sacrifice, but in your choice to stand." Before Ben could respond, Sasuke was gone, vanishing in a whisper of wind. Ben sat alone, the weight of the lens and the kunai anchoring him to the moment. He wasn't a hero anymore. He was a component in a machine of war, a battery for a desperate gamble. But he was a willing component. He had chosen this. He looked out the window at the setting sun, painting the village in hues of orange and purple. It was beautiful. It was worth fighting for. Not because he caused this, but because, for the first time since he got the Omnitrix, he was fighting for something he had come to understand, not just something he was told to save. The countdown in his mind reached 0. The sky remained dark, silent. The tension was a wire pulled taut. Then, an hour after full dark, the sensors screamed. Not from the edge of the system. From the upper atmosphere. The Chimera destroyer hadn't moved. It had deployed its weapon remotely. A colossal, transparent beam of complex energy, invisible to the naked eye but blazing on every chakra and technological sensor, lanced down from the heavens. It didn't strike the village. It struck the planet itself, a few miles outside Konoha's walls. There was no explosion. Only a deep, subaudible thrum that vibrated in the bones of every living thing. And then, the world changed. Across Konoha, Shinobi mid-patrol felt at first a sudden, dizzying weakness. A Jonin leaping between roofs stumbled, her chakra-enhanced jump falling short. A genin practicing a water jutsu watched in horror as the water splashed harmlessly from his hands. Lights fueled by chakra cells flickered and died. In the Hokage's bunker, Naruto gasped, a hand going to his chest. His immense chakra, usually a roaring sun within him, was still there, but muted. Sluggish. As if moving through mud. "Report!" he barked into the comms. Shikamaru's voice came back, strained. "Planet-wide energy dampening field. It's the countermeasure. It's not negating chakra, it's suppressing its efficacy. All chakra-based phenomena are operating at less than 30% output and are wildly unstable. Our barriers are down. Long-range communications are failing. We're being deafened and blinded." On the barracks roof, Ben felt nothing. No change. His echo energy was not chakra. He looked at the village below. He saw the panic, the confusion, the sudden vulnerability. Then, in the sky, portals, clean, circular, and silent, ripped open. Not over the village. In a ring around it, 10 miles out. Through them descended not dropships, but teleportation platforms. And on those platforms stood row upon row of new Chimera Sui Generis. These were different. Sleeker. Their armor bore glowing orange lines that pulsed in rhythm with the planet-wide dampening field. They were tuned to it. They were operating at 100% efficiency in a world where their enemy was crippled. This was the refinement. Not a brute force invasion. A surgical decapitation. Vilgax had turned down the lights, and now his perfectly adapted hunters were moving in for the kill. The comms crackled with Naruto's voice, tight with fury and resolve. "All units! Defensive Protocol K9! Fall back to the inner district. This is not a retreat. It's a funnel. Bring them to us. Ben! Get to the rally point. It's time!" Ben took a deep breath, the unfamiliar weight of the Aegis lens solid on his chest. He touched the dead core over his heart, then the hilt of the Nulkanai at his belt. The wait was over. The trap was set. And he, the broken key turned into a makeshift shield, was the bait. He leaped from the roof, not with chakra, but with his own human strength, heading towards the heart of the storm, where the last light of Konoha would either be snuffed out, or would find a way to burn in the dark.